Commons launches to enable their launch to go as they plan is to actually burn all CStack tokens of people who are not who haven't joined the legal association. And of course, we will keep a spreadsheet of how many CStack tokens everyone has. And when they join the legal association, they'll get all of their CStack tokens back. And their CStack score will go back to where it was. But to hold it on chain, it will be effectively attached to the legal association.
Cool, yeah, thanks for that explanation. If there's any questions related to like all the different structures, you can put it in the community hall in the workgroup channel. See, there's already a bunch of questions there. We'll get to it soon, but I also still have questions. So I think one interesting thing to me about the Common Stack community is how it's connected to other projects in the space. You know, there is the token engineering community that overlaps significantly with the Common Stack team. There's the block science team that does a lot of very good modeling and research, and then there's also other public goods funding projects like Panvala and say the Gitcoin grant system. Like, what is the Common Stack approach towards the rest of the community in terms of, you know, it's a beneficial thing to obviously work with the rest of the community, but so far it's been very much a case of like the Common Stack is also helping a lot of projects along the way. So how do you guys see that going forward with once the Common Stack launches its own projects and own sort of commons projects, how it will keep interacting with the rest of the communities and ecosystems? I think, Jeff, maybe if you have some perspective there.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, the Common Stack has really become sort of this meeting place of a lot of different communities. And I think a lot of the work that we've done in mechanism composability and looking at kind of the token engineering foundations of how these pieces come together, these governance Legos or money Legos, what we've been analyzing a lot with block science and using tools like CAD is how we can combine, say, something like quadratic funding and like a bonding curve or conviction voting. And when we combine these things, there are, you know, in complex adaptive systems, there could be nonlinear effects that lead to unintended consequences. So one of our biggest rallying cries is validating your designs and modeling and simulating to understand those outcomes. So I think that's kind of put us in this very collaborative space because we're not looking to compete with any other, you know, DAO ecosystem. It's about how they can operate together. So yeah, I think there's been a really great kind of coming together of a lot of different communities, and something we didn't really intend in the beginning, I think, but it just kind of evolved that way as the Common Stack has been a great public goods community ecosystem funder. So I see Naran on the call here with the Panvala League. We've actually allocated over $100,000 worth of PAN over the past few Gitcoin grant rounds to a lot of our community grants. And yeah, we see so much potential for cooperation leading to higher leverage synergies that there's just so much positive feedback loops in combining and working with these different communities, and we wouldn't be here today without it. So definite huge thank you, and thanks for all the inspiration and hard work from all the different groups that are working with us. And yeah, we're committed to building this ecosystem out, and it's not any one project. There's no one protocol to rule them all. It's about interoperability and composability and how we can build this better future together.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Rising tide lifts all boats. I think that thesis has always been the case in the blockchain space. You know, when other teams succeed, it's easier to cooperate and compete. So with the Token Engineering Commons launching soon, what are the sort of components that the Common Stack has worked on in the past, like conviction voting, the augmented bonding curve, all the interesting modeling and so forth? What components will be part of the first iteration of the Token Engineering Commons? What can we expect to see? Not sure who's most qualified to answer that question.
I think I can take it.
Okay, go for it.
Better again. But we're really, it's amazing that we're able to integrate basically all of our initial designs in the Token Engineering Commons. This partnership with the Token Engineering Commons is going to be very fruitful for iterating on our designs, and that's really why we are choosing to have this strategic partnership with the Token Engineering Commons. We are working with OneHive and the Commons Swarm to create the hatch, which we discovered this idea of impact hours, which are integrated into the hatch. And the impact hours are effectively, like, you could say, kind of like the team percent that happens in most like ecosystem building efforts, where there's a core team that has a percentage, but instead it's given to people who have received impact hours via praise. So people who have helped build the Token Engineering Commons up, they earn impact hours, and the amount of funds that they get out of the hatch is determined on how much the hatch raised. So anyway, so there'll be the hatch, and then the hatch will create a TEC hatch DAO, and then that hatch DAO actually will vote to upgrade into an augmented bonding curves and conviction voting DAO, and we call that DAO the Commons. So effectively, it's a two-part launch where there's the hatch, which is something that the Commons Stack always wanted to see, and then a sufficiently decentralization legal strategy to upgrade into a commons with the bonding curve and conviction voting. The one piece that's not going to be there at launch, which is against, not against, but missing from the Commons Stack original design, is the idea that money coming out of the conviction voting is first sent to the bonding curve before it's given to the people. So that's like the only piece that is going to be missing from the initial launch, and it's something that can be added later. So
what will then be in place of that design? Like if people exit, then where would the
when people receive funds from conviction voting, they'll just receive it in XDAI. For the Commons Stack, and just in our experience in the DAO space, it's very nice to have a stable token for you to make proposals in. When you propose for work to be done, you don't necessarily want that proposal to be in a currency that's extremely volatile. It's hard to do a business plan. So the goal was to have, the original Commons Stack design was to have it proposed in XDAI, and then at the very last second when someone claims it, the money goes back into the economy and they get TEC tokens or Commons tokens in general, right? And then they could choose if they want to sell some for XDAI or if they want to retain their governance rights in the ecosystem. But now they just get XDAI, and we can hopefully add that piece later as we go, if the TE Commons wants to.
Gotcha. Awesome. So I think an interesting question also is, it's like it's been a long time coming, putting all these components together and doing all the necessary modeling and verification and incorporating work from Ostrom and all these exciting components. Like it's obviously, doing something like this is always scary, but also exciting. Like what's the best outcome that you guys would want from the Token Engineering Commons, the launch and the subsequent months following it? What's like valuable things that would come out of this project that you would like to see?
Advancing token engineering fields, making it easy for, at least for me, I want to see token engineering as an engineering science that has respect and has easy access, so that when people are building token engineering systems that need token engineering, they have the tools to do it, so they don't screw it up. But maybe Livia has something to say on that too.
Yeah, I agree with that. That not only have the tools to do it, but have a place where they can transform this work in an open source work. Because I think what happens a lot of the times is people need some type of incentive to work on tools, and they can't afford to make it open source, or they can't afford to put it public, to have the education materials there. And I think something amazing that has been happening in the TEC so far is a lot of education materials are coming out of it. So not only advancing the tools that already exist, but opening place for new tools to come in place and for more people to enter in the field and to become token engineers and to have a better understanding of how what is the ethos of token engineering, like how this can expand and what types of economical systems are going to come that maybe we don't even imagine now, but that will be possible by all of this work that is being put in place now.
And just to add one more thing, the goal of the Token Engineering Commons is for token engineers to say what they need, and if they are providing the value to token engineering, then successfully, then they're also rewarded for those good decisions. And so it's the goal of the TEC is to be almost like the IEEE or an engineering association that is providing valuable services, whether it's certifications, standards, tooling, even just token engineering products that the token engineers themselves actually need. But instead of like most engineering associations where there's a membership fee and you don't really get monetarily rewarded or economically rewarded, here we're going to integrate an economy that if we coordinate value production successfully for token engineers, ideally the people who are participating would also be monetarily rewarded for their success.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. I think that's one of the promises of all this ecosystem that the entire blockchain system has been building. It's like, as you said, right from the start as well. You know, it's like building something where appreciation also comes in the form of, you know, financial appreciation, but also other components and parts that are necessary to form all the capital involved with the project, from social capital to all the artifacts that's built from it. Cool. Let's get to some audience questions. I'm taking a look at the community hall, so if you also have some questions, you can go straight there and put it in. It's in the Discord as well, and Jessica will also be finding all the questions in the other channels and feeding them to me. So starting off with a question from Benjamin, it says, what can we do today to ensure our token models don't have unintended consequences? I think that question is very valuable because I think that's something that the Commons Stack has paid a lot of attention to with all the work they've done in modeling and block science. So take it away, whoever feels like they can answer that question.
I feel like Jeff is the best person to answer that.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I feel like Jeff is the right answer to that. Go for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so unfortunately, there are no simple answers when it comes to complex systems, but there are tools that we can use to manage that complexity. So CAD/CAD is one of the ones that we've spoken most about. And I think everyone here is familiar with it, but I'll give a quick intro. Basically, you can feed in all sorts of information. And it kind of processes it like a board game. Like everyone has a turn. There are a set number of actions. There are a set number of players. You can basically run through complex scenarios and let those play out in agent-based models, system dynamic models, multi-scale models. It's really a robust simulation tool so that we can understand how these systems evolve. Examining them on different time scales as well. If we're looking at things like front running, we want to be looking at, you know, the block time scale. If we're looking at longer term sustainability of these systems, we may be looking at years or decades time scales. So CAD/CAD is a really adaptable tool that can do all sorts of different simulations with different scales, with different agents, with different considerations. And of course, that delves into several different rabbit holes in data science. There's a lot of ongoing collaborations right now. Actually, there's some open science modeling on the Gitcoin ecosystem. So we definitely encourage as many people as are interested and have the skills and expertise to jump into CAD/CAD to learn more about how to simulate and validate complex systems, because we see this as it's going to be an explosion of need in the Web3 ecosystem. And I think we've already seen it. Lots of job applications have come out in the past few months for token engineers. And of course, CAD/CAD isn't the only tool either. Trent McConaughey from Ocean Protocol also wrote Token Spice, which is a little more niche for his needs and for certain needs in Web3. So it's not about any one tool, but definitely using these kinds of tools brings token engineering closer to traditional engineering. In electrical engineering, we have Spice, which is a circuit model, because you do the same thing with circuits in your cell phone. So you make sure they don't explode. You run, sensitivity tests, fault tolerance tests, and make sure that under no conditions does this circuit fail and blow up in your pocket. And of course, we see these things happen in the real world. And of course, this is why responsibility and ethical design are such core components of engineering disciplines. And we feel that token engineering should be no different. It's not traditional software that you can just do a pull request and change the code. It really is public infrastructure that needs to be robust and have these graceful failure modes, like power grids. We're just building the economic equivalent of international power grids. So yeah, there's lots of tools and growing interest in the area, but we feel it's very, very important for all token design.
That's great. I feel like just to add to that question, I think something interesting to ask as well is like what's a good example of a unintended consequence or failure mode of a DAO, right? Because on the one hand, it's like, yes, you might build a token model where the DAO just dies out, doesn't achieve its goal. But what's something that, especially in modeling, that you guys are trying to prevent from happening, that you don't want to see? Just one or two examples, or just one example.
Absolutely.
So we can also get to some other questions.
For sure. So one example that we saw actually in our early modeling of conviction voting is that without proper protection, proposal spam would take down the system. So conviction voting, for anyone who doesn't know, you have a bunch of proposals on the table, and then everyone asserts their tokens, supports a proposal, and when that proposal hits a certain threshold, it kind of grows in power like a battery or a cup filling up with water. And when the cup is filled to the threshold, then it passes. What we saw in the early simulations was that if there were too many proposals on the table, no proposal would be able to garner sufficient support to pass. So from those early simulations, we said, okay, we would need to implement some kind of staking on proposals, which I mean is fairly common in the Web3 space already, that you have some skin in the game, so you can't just spam or DDoS these systems. But it was really interesting that our early modeling showed that clearly, that if you have proposal spam, then nothing will get through. So one of the early, unintended effects that could happen with conviction voting was already prevented with the modeling and results that we saw there. So yeah, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. I love that. Thanks for that. So we have a question from KNR, which I think is related to the trusted seed. So maybe Dan, if you can help answer this question. It's related to the application process to the trusted seed, and in order to become a member, you have to pay or donate. And then how does that also then fit into the legal application or the legal acceptance into the Swiss Association? To more specifically reword it, when you pay the member dues, do you contact people after that, or is it a separate process to form part of the Swiss Association?
Okay, Griff will probably complement my answer anyway, but basically yes, we do have a donation spaces can donate. That is I'm open to donations all the time, no problem. But the membership dues are a separate process. So basically, you go through the flow of applying to your and you get your C-stack score in the backend, and you then apply. I mean, you dues, and yes, I mean, like that is a process. We are in the process as well of defining scholarships. So that is something that will come up. We know that we to guarantee diversity in emerging markets, in different spaces across the world that don't necessarily, 450 DAI is completely different across the world. We understand that. There is a process being set up for that. But yes, I mean, donating is one thing, and going through the motions of paying your membership dues is different. So, Griff, do you care to compliment?
I think the only thing that I would add is just that the legal association stuff is still like a few days from being set up. There are a bunch of people who have become members, but maybe only like 15, and that we have this really cool DApp that we created. I'm pretty confident it's the first application that actually makes you a legal member of a Swiss association. I think that's pretty cool. And it actually uses 3 different blockchains to do it. So it's a really cool DApp with an easy user experience, but it's a lot of work in the back end. And so when you join the Swiss Association and pay membership dues, whether you got those dues from a scholarship or not, you'll actually be able to trace where your funds are going as well. And you'll be able to see, oh yeah, my dues paid Jeff's salary, and you'll actually be able to trace exactly where your money went. So it's a really cool process, and it should be live by the end of the month.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So the next question, unless someone else has something to add to that, I can get to the next question. So from Nate Suits is, this is quite a cool question. I think this should be interesting to know. So currently there's the Token Engineering Commons that's now being planned to be hatched and to be launched. A 2-part question. What other projects do you guys foresee utilize Common Stack in the short term? And what other projects is the Common Stack and the Common Stack community looking into building into the future? There's now these awesome templates, and Token Engineering Commons will be first. What are the other projects that look to be interesting to attempt or to try out with this architecture?
Can take the first part and then somebody else can take the second. I think one of the most interesting applications that we have had many discussions with was the application for community currencies, especially with COVID and the kind of global economic heart attack for liquidity. There's a huge, much of what we're building is very ethereal and up in the clouds. But for me in my work, I think what's really interesting is to try to connect the ground level to this kind of ether and see what is it like for, virtual communities are one side and they have their challenges, but there are huge needs on the ground right now for people and surviving. And we have this powerful technology. So the Community Currency Alliance actually spun up out of the Common Stack. And there's incredible folks in there who've been working for decades on looking at this issue. So that's one potential application. But I think Griff is very interested in looking within our own community. And his suggestion was that we have a vote for which commons do we deploy next. There's so many communities and projects that come to us and say, hey, we want to use the Common Stack. And we say, okay, we're almost there. This is our first deployment with the TEC. So yeah, and there's so many ways that we can take this. So I think we're quite open. Griff, did you have a particular next idea for who's going to be the next commons?
No, I mean, I think the real goal from the Common Stack side is to let people make their own commons and help them in doing that. First, the TEC is hard to look past. I mean, we really want, in our partnership with the TEC, we really want to help them the most that we can create their own successful commons, and really this big experiment with avoiding the crypto technocracy that we tend to always have, where a bunch of devs just pick the parameters of the economy. And one of the things that we're trying really hard, and we're very privileged to be partnered with the Token Engineering Commons for this, because there are a bunch of people in that community that can actually design economies. So putting it to a vote and allowing the community to design their own economy without just a couple devs picking all the parameters. And once we have this system in place, the goal is really to allow anybody to just come in and take it and play with it. And our role is not to for the next little bit after the TEC is not really to focus on one next commons, but to support the communities of commons that want to come up until there's enough of them that we can gather enough data to change the model and go from what we call iteration 0 commons to an iteration 1 commons that has a lot more CAD modeling and a lot more design validation because we'll have all this data from the iteration 0 commons. So the dream is that we can support various communities in launching these things of whatever topics they want. And then once we have all that data, we will again probably narrow our focus into one for a new iteration of our flagship commons template.
I want to make a comment. We pass it to Libby, something that I think needs attention. One of the interesting things that looking at the that coming and applies, starting to see patterns in, for example, as Jess was mentioning, that is one pattern. There is a bunch of votes that really, they connect to this purpose and this narrative. Another pattern that seems to keep coming up, it's regenerative economies from the perspective of the environment, and a lot of people really connect to this narrative as well. So these kind of spaces that we can help curate and create and gather the people around these potential new coins. I mean, there is a lot of beauty there, and just between what Griff was mentioning on the technical build, but just pass it on to Libby because there's also the cultural build, which is beautiful. I'm making a shout out to the Graviton group because, man, that is beautiful. Something that fully emerged autonomously from EC. So, it's going to be very autonomous. Libby.
Awesome. Yeah, Livia, you wanted to add as well?
Yeah, I just want to add to what will people be able to use from everything that we're building. The TEC is creating an enormous and super detailed documentation. So you can see all of the calls recorded. There's so much information in the forum. We're working on a TEC case study with ATA. So it's a research that is happening meanwhile the TEC is happening to grab all of the learnings from this experience that will be available to the community. And from the case study, we'll build a cultural handbook. So everyone that wants to create a cultural build for their communities will be able to see what were our best practices and follow a few of the steps that will always be improved and added on.
That's great. I think to add a follow-on question to that, Olivia, like where can people currently go look if they want to see what's all the stuff that the Common Stack has produced? Should it go to Medium or GitHub, or is there a forum, the Discord? Like where can people go to get up to speed on everything that's been produced thus far?
Yeah, the forum has a lot of great information and it's very dynamic, but I think it's well organized enough that people can find even previous materials there. The handbook will take a minute to be released, but there's also great Medium posts that Jess can speak more into it because she's leading the comms working group. But there are every 2 weeks, there's a praise quantification blog post that comes out talking about all the praise that people received, how the impact hours are looking, what are the most outstanding contributions from the weeks. And there's also a space for guest blog posts. So Nate did a guest post recently, and yeah, there is a lot of content being shared on, especially on the forum and on the Medium, and also Discord is always popping up, but more for like immediate communication. And Jess, maybe you want to add something?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, that's something we really need to work on together. And I think there's, hopefully we can expand into this year and building on our knowledge base and how do we present all this information? Because I think, as we all know, it's so hard to keep up. There's so much information blasted at us. So I think from the Common Stack perspective, the ideal and what we have envisioned for some time is to have a library, an open and shared library. And of course, I have some crazy vision. If anybody, if somebody wants to collaborate, maybe Simon for like a Decentraland library, and we have all these amazing modelers who can present visually crazy amounts of information. So we need a better way to present and to engage with this. And there's all kind of things we can do with quests, and metagame is really great at this. And so I think we have a long way to go actually in our knowledge curation and looking at more fun and engaging and maybe more digestible bits, because there is so much. People often comment when they come, I'm so overwhelmed, there's so much information. So for right now, it's pretty manual, and that the interdimensional librarians like me can walk you through step by step and guide you through all this information. But hopefully we can build towards a little more easy way to interact. So right now we have multiple platforms, but we hope to expand into that this year and building out a very cool library that's a little more interactive.
Yeah, and I just want to add that a lot of the Common Stack content is being done in partnership with the TEC for the last several months, because we're basically, from the Common Stack perspective, we're in full-on research mode, understanding the needs of the first users of our application and of our design. And so a lot of the learnings are really done in partnership with them. And as Livia said, we're working with Atta to create this case study and eventually create a cultural handbook. But right now it's kind of like we're deep into research mode and trying to understand, what does it take to launch a commons? What do you really need? And trying not to be like we have all the answers at this stage, because we haven't launched one yet. So the Common Stack, I should say, the Common Stack doesn't launch commons, but we support partners in launching commons. And we really want to study and understand how this launch went, and collect all of the good information that like actually helped create the launch, and then also be aware of the things that we could have done better that would have made the launch better, and then we can disseminate the information. But right now it would be kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I also find, like, usually with the content out there and all the stuff that's happening in the industry, is even if it's there and it's accessible, so in Medium or something, that sometimes even something that's a few months old is already out of date and has information that's not relevant anymore. So it's always a very difficult process to ensure everything's up to date, and it takes a lot of work. So kudos for people that actively do that. I'm definitely looking forward to going to a Decentraland or CryptoVoxels library. That sounds such a fun idea. To add onto the last point, Griff, that you said on like being deep down in research. I previously asked a question around like what one hopes to see and succeed with the TEC, but what are the outstanding questions that after this launch and this cultural handbook that needs to be created to share learning, so forth? What are the sort of outstanding questions there that needs to be tested or needs to be written down and needs to be learned?
How do we enable communities to actually design their own commons and design their own economies? That's a big one. We're really playing with that. How do we successfully achieve Eleanor Ostrom's principles one by one? How did the TEC draw the boundaries around their DAO? one card on the call, battle testing is this concept of gravity. How do we make sure that these socioeconomic systems have easy access to conflict resolution tools and conflict transformation tools is what gravity is bringing in. But maybe I'll pass it to Olivia if she has other things that are still open questions.
Yeah, I think a big open question is how do we apply all of Ostrom's principles to a cyber commons? Because she has a lot of a very in the ground empirical work, and there is so many insights from her work that can 100% apply, and so far so good kind of thing. But we need to understand if it's going to continue being this way once we have them all in place, and how sustainable these processes are, especially when we scale. Because one thing she doesn't cover in her work is like large comments. So we've been experimenting with fractalizing our structure. So that's why we have the working groups and the community stewards working group as kind of a connector of all of these multiple things that are happening simultaneously. And ideally, this can scale as we are imagining and continue to fractalize, and still all the parts are communicating, and we always have this perspective of the whole. But this is an open question.
That's great. Yeah, all these questions are. There's so many open-ended questions still about like where this stuff works, and it's great that people are trying to answer that, and especially with such a great group of people. So looking forward to seeing the outcomes of this. We have a few minutes left until it's at the end of the hour. So are there any things that I haven't touched upon that needs to be said, or something interesting to add from any of the Common Stack members? Did I miss anything or something valuable?
Well, maybe we can do a round. I haven't heard Chris talk much. Chris, do you have anything to add that you think it's important that people know about the Common Stack?
That's great. Anyone else? Is there anything else that it could be useful?
I mean, I'll just build on what Chris just said, which is definitely get involved. But we're doing a lot more side right now than Common Stack. So do come to the TEC Discord. We have many working groups, and we do have extra support that's needed. So whatever your skill set is, I'm sure we could find something for you to do to help to contribute to building the TEC. But if your interest is also Common Stack, then come help us at Common Stack too.
Mentioned, we are accepting proposals for funding on the TEC side. So if you're building something that's token engineering related, education, tools, research, anything open source that's related to TE, you can reach out to us. We're supporting a lot of groups, as Jeff mentioned, in funding. And then also, yeah, we're always expanding and discussing with other groups. There's so many opportunities to research together. There's research collaboration spinning up. There's one right now with Block Science, CAD-CAD, TEC, looking at Gitcoin grant models and how to model for better, more resilient governance. So there's so many opportunities as we go along. A lot of people want to see a generalized bonding curve model. So it's groups that are coming together around a particular project and deliverable with a certain set of resources. So there's opportunity to open up new research collaborations, probably more so after the TEC launches because it's pretty strapped right now, but endless opportunities to collaborate. So just, yeah, reach out, and would love to support whatever it is that your project or team is working on.
Awesome. Yeah, to combine Jessica and Tamara's points, a rising tide lifts all boats. I think that's always, I think I've said it too many times now during this call, but it's something that's always true, and what I appreciate about this community. So yeah, get your hands dirty and contribute where you can. Like Chris said, a bunch of friendly people that can help. So feel free to ask away. And I think that's the end of the hour. So unless I'm missing something, if that's all there is to this current
I just
call,
wanted to say, as a final closing point, make sure you get in the trusted seed. Make sure you have your C-Stack score. There are going to be some incoming airdrops that you definitely want to be a part of. And of course, the TEC hatch is coming up in the next couple of months. So this is going to be a really exciting time. So make sure you're in the trusted seed. Make sure you have your C-Stack score. I know there's a couple of different networks, but yeah, we're happy to walk you through the process. So please feel free to reach out. And this is the time to make sure that you're on the train, because we're going places and it's really exciting.
Also, quick invitation. We have Graviton training that Griff and Dan briefly mentioned. So it's today at 9 p.m. Central European time. And Juan has been leading this initiative, and it's really amazing. Anyone, feel free to pop up. It's going to be awesome today.
Yeah, and I guess I want to say one thing too. I kind of mentioned this. I dove deep into this in my talk at F Denver. But by far, the hardest thing about the Common Stack is getting people to believe that we can actually create regenerative value. But the people who are creating value, non-excludable value for communities, that we can create economies that can be actually profitable for doing non-profit work. And getting people to understand that that we can combine both of these worlds is kind of like this, overcoming this collective psychosis that nonprofit work has no value is the biggest challenge. So if you guys can help us with that collective awareness that we can create economies around causes where people who participate can be rewarded for the value they create, that would be huge, honestly. So yeah. That's my word. Awesome.
So I think that's that for this session. I'm not sure if the moderator is the one that should close the session, but unless anyone else objects, thank you guys for coming, and thank you for the team to answer all the questions. I think I speak for everyone. I say it's very exciting times, and looking forward to the launch, and looking forward to contributing again in the future. Yeah, big pleasure.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Simon.
Simon.
Cool.
Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you, Simon.
Cheers.
Hey, TJ. And I'll be honest, I'm free this hour, so I'm going to hang out and answer more questions.